Here's the kit, which I just got, which it's got the instructions. It's for the rear, it's for the front. It's pretty straightforward, very simple. Here's the kit. I've already unwrapped all the paper out of it, but here's the sticker kit we're going to put on the car after we're done. There is the front and rear springs. So what I wanted to show you today was we're going to install the ground control coilover kit. This is the current Spec SE30 setup that's in the car now. I went ahead and took the wheel off, and I'm going to show you all the components you need to remove to replace the springs on the front. My problem is, on my camber plates, I don't have access to the top nut, so I'm going to have to remove the entire camber plate assembly, which isn't a big deal. The alignment will still stay the same when you put it back together because you're not going to change the settings, you're just going to remove the entire assembly. So for this part of the build, it's all disassembly. So just take the set screw out. You're going to need to remove the rotor and the caliper as a complete unit. You don't need to drain the fluid or unhook the line. Just we'll take it out and let it sit. On the back side, there's a couple bolts. So on the strut tube, if you want to remove the spring perch, it's welded on this nice big fat bead right here, and you pretty much want to cut it right just above that. So I'll mark with this line so you can get an idea of where I'm going to cut it. That will leave that bead behind, and everything else will go away. And once you get done cutting it, then you can fine tune it to get it level. One thing to know is this is very thin, so when you're cutting on it, you don't have to use a whole lot of pressure. Here I have the coilover kit installed, and the spring perch has been trimmed, and I got it as flat as I can get it, where it's pretty flush all the way around. There's no gaps around the bottom of it, and I think it'll work. But the problem I see over time is this is aluminum, and I think this collar will end up getting mauled by this, and I think it'll end up pushing down, sliding down over it. So the smart move is, I believe, is to install this. This item is meant to either be welded in, or I think you can just slide it over and have it set on top of it. I think it'll be okay without welding it. I don't think you need to weld it, but you can. And also there's an O-ring in the kit that keeps the sleeve from doing all that. So it sits underneath this section here on the inside. It'll keep it pretty solid, keep it from making a lot of noise, and keep it from moving around and causing damage. So here's the stack up. First things first, O-ring down to about 1/4 from the bottom, and then the sleeve. I'm going to put the side that's got the cutout for the relief for the O-ring to go into. The other side doesn't have it. And you can put the top piece back on, holds the strut insert in. That's it. This is the rear suspension, and the kit goes in this very easy as well. Much easier than the front. No fabrication, you have to cut anything off if you don't want to. There's nothing to cut really. So for this, you just need to remove the bolt for the shock, the bottom of the shock, and the control arm will drop down enough to get the spring out. So the easiest way to do it is just bust the nut loose, the bolt, and then what I'll do is I'll take a little bit of tension off the. So once it's loose, you can just shoot it out. Remove the sway bar. So I take it off the bottom link here is where I take it off. Nut and washer. Controller around. Really easy. Alright, so the next piece is going to be the lower collar. There we go, lower collar. Just sits on it. And the other piece is the piece they made for us, a little bit different shape than what we tested, and it's going to keep the spring in place. And it's got a O-ring on the inside. That's what's going to help lock it in place. Spring goes on. Right about there somewhere. Get the bolt started by hand, and then you go. I'll torque it. When I'm all done, I'll come back and torque everything. A few post-installation comments I'd like to make. The collar on the bottom doesn't have to be welded. It's pretty tight sitting in there, but I'd go ahead and just get a few tack welds in there just to hold it in place, keep it from moving around. I don't think it's going to hurt by not welding. Just peace of mind for me. Don't forget to tighten your adjustable nut here before you put any weight on it. It says so in the instructions. That's so that when this is loose, you run the risk of it damaging the threads and slipping. So tighten it up before you put it down. I got 6 threads showing, and when I put it on the ground it sits a bit high. So I would probably say your initial setting, just go up 4 threads or 4 turns and tighten it up and start your initial settings there. My camera plates are junk, and I had to tear them all the way apart to get them off, which means I have to have an alignment done now. I can do it at home. I checked the camber and I got like 4.1 on the front left and 4.5 on the front right. I pushed them all the way in to see how much I could get out of it, and it's quite a bit. And obviously clearance here is not an issue with the tire. So that's one benefit, is you get to have more negative camber now. Somehow the other thing I forgot to mention was in getting the bulb joints off without damaging the boot. So like I said, you can use a pickle fork if you're careful. Make sure you don't cut the boot. Otherwise, like I said, there's a tool that is made that separates it with pressure instead. Keeps you from running the risk of cutting the boot. Same on the other side of the control arm. So this is, you need a 17mm socket to get this nut off and a 19 for the other side. And everything comes apart really easy. For the rear, I set the ride height at 4 turns on the collar, and the same thing for the front. Also the rear, I didn't get an O-ring for the rear, so what I ended up using is just electrical tape. I went 4 wraps around the post that's underneath there, and that sits on there pretty nice and flush. So if you don't get an O-ring, just use electrical tape, or you can source an O-ring. It's not the end of the world if you don't get one. But it's sitting, right now it's sitting at full droop, and the spring is not loose in there at all, so it's not going to come out. So this collar is going to keep it in place.